Here is something that surprises a lot of Canadians. The Canada Pension Plan just completed a 7-year enhancement, the biggest structural change to the CPP in decades. And yet most people who are retired right now or retiring this year are going to see only a very modest increase from all of that. Meanwhile, someone born in the year 2000 who enters the workforce and contributes for a full career could eventually receive a pension that is more than 50% larger in real terms than what today's retirees are getting. Same plan, completely different outcome. And the reason comes down to something most people have never heard explained clearly. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly how this works, what it means for your own CPP, and most importantly, what specific moves you can make right now to get the most out of the system, regardless of when you retire. And stay with me, because later I am going to explain something about the survivor benefit that catches a lot of couples completely off guard, and it could have a real impact on how you plan your finances together. Welcome. My name is Naim, and this is Canadian Retirement Benefits. Today we are talking about the CPP Enhancement, what it is, why 2026 is a milestone year, what the new maximum and average payments actually are, and what this means for retirees, near retirees, and anyone still working while collecting their pension. Let us get started. Let us begin with what the CPP enhancement actually is, because despite years of discussion about it, most Canadians still have a fuzzy understanding of what changed and why. The Canada Pension Plan was originally designed to replace about a quarter of your average career earnings in retirement. That sounds reasonable on paper, but in practice, it was never quite enough, especially as private workplace pensions have become less common over the decades, and as personal savings have not been keeping up with retirement needs across the population. So, starting in 2019, the federal and provincial governments began a phased upgrade. Each year, the contribution rates went up slightly, and the income replacement target grew. By 2023, the first phase of that upgrade was complete, raising the replacement target from 25% to 33% of average career earnings. Then a second layer of contributions, called CPP2, was layered on top for higher earners starting in 2024. And now, in 2026, the full framework is in place and the dust has settled. So, what does that actually mean in dollar terms? The maximum CPP retirement pension for someone starting at age 65 in January 2026 is $1,507.65 per month. That is the new benchmark. But here is something important to understand. The average new retiree starting their CPP in January 2026 is receiving around $925 per month. There is a gap of over $500 between the maximum and the average, and that gap exists for a very specific reason. To receive the maximum CPP, you need to have contributed at or near the maximum level for roughly 39 to 40 years of your working life, no significant career gaps, no long stretches below the earnings ceiling. Most Canadians simply do not have that profile. They had years of lower earnings early in their careers, or took time off for family caregiving, or had periods of unemployment or education. All of those things pull the eventual pension down from the theoretical maximum. The average of $925 reflects a more typical Canadian working history. Still meaningful, still important, but not the ceiling figure you sometimes see advertised. Does that gap between the maximum and what you actually receive sound familiar? If you have been wondering why your CPP statement does not show the maximum amount, this is the reason. Now, here is where the generational divide in this story becomes really striking, and it is something that is not talked about nearly enough. Someone retiring in 2026, after a full career, has spent the vast majority of their working years contributing under the old rules before the enhancement even began in 2019. Only about 7 years of their working history involve the new higher contribution rates, so their pension is still mostly calculated under the old 25% replacement formula. The enhancement adds something. But for someone retiring today, it is a relatively modest addition on top of what they would have received anyway. For someone in their 40s or 50s right now, the picture is better. A larger portion of their remaining career will be spent contributing under the enhanced rules. Their pension will be a genuine hybrid, partly old formula, partly new, and the enhancement will make a meaningful difference. But the full impact of this 7-year upgrade is really reserved for people who are just starting their careers today. A young worker entering the workforce after 2025 and contributing at the higher enhanced rates for a full 40 years could eventually retire on a CPP pension that is more than 50% larger in real terms than the pension their grandparents received. That is an enormous long-term shift in Canada's Retirement Security Foundation. For those watching this right now who are already in retirement or close to it, and your CPP is what it is based on your own history, and that is completely fine. But understanding why the maximum and the average differ helps you set realistic expectations and make better decisions about the other moving parts of your retirement income. There is another piece of the CPP picture that has become more complicated with the enhancement, and this one affects people who are still working while collecting their pension. If that is you, pay close attention. When you start receiving your CPP but keep working, you continue to contribute to the plan. Those contributions generate something called the post-retirement benefit, a small but permanent addition to your monthly pension starting the January after the contribution year. Each year you keep contributing, you earn another layer of that benefit, and they stack on top of each other for as long as you keep working. The rules on whether you must contribute depend on your age. If you are between 60 and 65 and still working while receiving CPP, contributions are mandatory. Both you and your employer must continue to pay in. Once you turn 65, it becomes your choice. You can keep contributing and building up additional monthly income, or you can file a form with your employer and the CRA to stop contributions entirely and keep more of your paycheck. At 70, all contributions stop automatically, regardless of whether you are still working or not. Now, should you keep contributing after 65? For most regular employees, the answer is often yes, at least for a few years. The reason is that your employer matches your contributions dollar for dollar, so the cost to you personally is only half of the total amount going into your pension. The return on that investment, a small permanent monthly income indexed to inflation for the rest of your life, tends to be quite attractive for employees in reasonably good health. For self-employed Canadians, the math is very different. Because you pay both the employee and the employer share yourself, your cost is double. The same monthly pension addition costs you twice as much to generate. For many self-employed people, stopping contributions at 65 and directing that money elsewhere makes more financial sense. It is a decision worth running through carefully with someone who knows your situation. By the way, if you are finding these CPP updates helpful and want to stay on top of the latest changes to your retirement income, I would love for you to subscribe to Canadian Retirement Benefits. We cover CPP, OAS, GIS, CRA updates, and all the practical retirement topics that matter to Canadian seniors every single day in plain, simple language. Tap subscribe and join our community. Now, let me share the detail that I think matters most to couples, because this one really does catch people off guard. Here is the part about survivor benefits that I flagged at the beginning, and I want to be honest with you because this information is not comfortable, but it is genuinely important for couples to understand. When one spouse passes away, the surviving partner is entitled to what is called the CPP survivor's pension. If the surviving spouse is 65 or older, they receive up to 60% of what the deceased spouse was receiving. That sounds straightforward, but there is a cap if the surviving spouse is already receiving their own CPP retirement pension. The two amounts do not simply add together. There is a combined ceiling, and the survivor's portion gets reduced by 40% before being added. The total combined amount cannot exceed the maximum single pension. which is $1,531.56 per month in 2026. What this means practically for a couple where both partners have strong CPP pensions, say both near or at the maximum, is that when one passes away, the survivor may receive almost nothing from the deceased partner's pension. Their own pension is already at or near the cap, and the survivor's amount gets squeezed out entirely. I am not saying this to be alarming. I am saying it because too many couples build their retirement financial plan assuming both CPP pensions will effectively continue to the survivor. In households where both partners contributed heavily, that assumption can be very wrong. Knowing this ahead of time allows you to plan more carefully, perhaps by building up TFSA savings, life insurance coverage, or other assets that do not have a survivor cap attached to them. Have you and your partner ever walked through what your combined income would look like if one of you was no longer here? If not, it is one of the most valuable conversations you can have for your long-term financial security. Let me also tell you about one of the most powerful tools available to anyone who has not yet started their CPP, the deferral strategy. Every month you delay starting your CPP past 65, your eventual monthly payment goes up by 0.7%, weighed all the way to 70, and your pension is 42% higher than it would have been at 65. On the new maximum pension of $1,507, that 42% increase brings the monthly payment to over $2,100 permanently for the rest of your life. Fully indexed to inflation. For someone in good health who has other income to live on during their early 60s, perhaps a workplace pension, rental income, RRSP savings, or a partner's income, delaying CPP to 70 can be one of the most valuable financial decisions available. The CPP is one of the very few income sources that is both guaranteed for life and protected against inflation. Maximizing it by waiting provides a form of insurance against living a very long life, which is something more and more Canadians are doing. The other side of this strategy involves your registered savings. If you have RRSP or RRIF assets, drawing down some of those between ages 60 and 65, while your income is lower and your tax rate is potentially at its lowest point in retirement, reduces the size of your registered accounts. That means smaller mandatory withdrawals later, which reduces the chance of those withdrawals pushing your income above the OAS clawback threshold. You draw on your registered savings at a low rate now, your CPP grows to its maximum, and you protect your OAS at the same time. These three moves working together, RRSP drawdown, CPP deferral, OAS protection, represent some of the most elegant retirement planning available to Canadians with the flexibility to use them. There is also one more update worth mentioning. A change to the death benefit that is relevant for estate planning. The standard CPP death benefit is a one-time lump sum payment of $2,500 paid to the estate to help cover immediate expenses like funeral costs. It has been this amount for many years and has not kept pace with the actual cost of those services, but there is a newer provision that applies in specific circumstances. If a contributor passes away without a surviving spouse or common law partner, and they had never received any CPP retirement or disability payments before their death, the estate can receive an additional top-up that effectively doubles the death benefit to $5,000. It is not a large amount in the grand scheme of things, but for an estate settling an unexpected death, it provides meaningful liquidity right when it is needed most. If you are handling the estate of someone in this situation, it is worth confirming with Service Canada whether this additional amount applies. Let us bring everything together before we close. The CPP Enhancement reached its mature phase in 2026, completing a 7-year upgrade that raises the income replacement goal from 25 to 33% of career earnings The maximum monthly pension is now just over $1,500, but the average new retiree is receiving closer to $925 because most Canadians do not have 40 years of maximum contributions behind them. That gap is normal and expected. If you are retiring now, the enhancement adds something to your pension, but its biggest impact will be felt by future generations. What matters most for people in their 60s today is understanding your own CPP amount, knowing the rules around survivor benefits for couples, evaluating whether deferring to 70 makes sense for your situation, and using your TFSA and RRSP drawdown strategy to protect your OAS. For those still working and already collecting CPP, your contributions are building a post-retirement benefit that adds permanently to your monthly income. If you are an employee, continuing to contribute after 65 often makes strong financial sense. If you are self-employed, the math is different and worth reviewing carefully. And for couples, please have the conversation about what your combined income would look like if one of you was no longer here. The survivor benefit cap is real, and planning around it is far better than discovering it after the fact. Your CPP is one of the most valuable assets in your retirement. The more clearly you understand how it works, the better positioned you are to make the most of it. If this video helped you see something about your CPP situation a little more clearly, please share it with a spouse, a sibling, or a friend who is thinking about retirement. This kind of detail rarely gets explained in plain language, and one conversation can make a real difference. And if you are not already part of our community here at Canadian Retirement Benefits, please subscribe. We cover CPP, OAS, GIS, dental plan updates, tax tips, provincial benefits, and everything else that matters to Canadian seniors. Every single day in simple, honest language designed for you. Tap subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video that could protect your retirement income. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. Take good care of yourself, and we will see you tomorrow on Canadian Retirement Benefits.